would you do if your entire high-rise turned into a burning trap in under 60 seconds? On an otherwise quiet Wednesday afternoon, Hong Kong's Tai Po district was about to witness one of the most terrifying urban disasters of the decade. At 2:50 p.m., without the slightest warning, a column of thick black smoke blasted into the sky, followed by flames racing across the exterior of a 31-story residential tower. In moments, the calm skyline morphed into a towering inferno visible from miles away. This wasn't an ordinary apartment fire. It was a full-scale vertical firestorm. A single ignition point on a section of bamboo scaffolding, dry, brittle, and dangerously flammable, acted like a giant fuse wrapped around the building. As temperatures soared, flames vaulted upward floor by floor, devouring scaffolding, balconies, and entire walls with terrifying speed. Inside the 2,000-unit complex, families were caught off guard. Afternoon meals stopped mid-bite as smoke flooded hallways. Elderly residents opened their doors to corridors already swallowed in darkness. Some never heard a fire alarm at all. In less than a minute, the building fell into chaos, and the deadliest moments were only beginning. The disaster started with something almost invisible, a tiny ignition point hidden deep within the bamboo scaffolding wrapped around the tower. At 2:50 p.m., workers and residents noticed a thin ribbon of smoke drifting upward, nothing unusual for a renovation site. But within seconds, that smoke burst into violent flames. Investigators believe the fire began in a lower section of the scaffolding where dry bamboo, plastic coverings, and tightly packed renovation materials created a perfect storm. Under the afternoon heat, the structure became tinder. Once the spark caught, the flames spread faster than anyone could react. Worse, the building's fire alarm didn't activate immediately. Several residents reported hearing no warning at all, not a single siren, until the blaze had already grown uncontrollable. Most people were alerted only by neighbors banging on doors or yelling through hallways. What should have been a manageable fire at ground level instantly transformed into a vertical firestorm. Within moments, flames had already climbed multiple floors, setting the stage for one of the most catastrophic high-rise fires Hong Kong has seen in years. No, the fire didn't just spread. It exploded upward with terrifying intensity. Within seconds, the bamboo scaffolding wrapped around the building became a vertical highway of flames. Dry, sun-baked, and covering nearly the entire 31-story tower, the structure acted like a massive combustible shell. Firefighters later described it as watching gasoline race up a skyscraper. Flames shot upward 30 floors in minutes, igniting window frames, air conditioning units, and entire exterior walls. Heat pouring from the facade became so extreme that firefighters were forced to retreat again and again. Burning scaffolding poles snapped and collapsed, plunging onto nearby streets like flaming spears. Residents who looked outside their windows saw a solid wall of fire rising straight towards them. No time to think, no time to react. Entire vertical sections of the building burned at once, a deadly phenomenon known as the chimney effect. Thick black smoke poured into apartments, trapping families before they could reach stairwells. The building's exterior became a giant fire funnel, and by then, nothing could stop the blaze. Inside, panic detonated instantly. As flames climbed the exterior walls, choking smoke surged into hallways, stairwells, and ventilation shafts. Families had only seconds. Some opened their doors and found pitch-black corridors. Others sprinted toward stairwells, only to find them jammed with residents desperately pushing downward through blinding smoke. Many of the 2,000 residents were elderly or had limited mobility. Some could barely walk. Others were bedridden. For them, evacuation was nearly impossible. People screamed names into the darkness. Parents carried children low to the ground to avoid the smoke. Dozens climbed onto balconies, waving towels, pleading for rescuers to see them through the flames. Witnesses heard voices calling for help from windows, from balconies, from behind locked doors, but the fire was spreading too fast. Entire floors were consumed before residents even grasped the danger. With alarms delayed and visibility collapsing, the building turned into a maze of smoke, fear, and confusion. For hundreds trapped inside, every second meant life or death. Outside, chaos exploded across the entire district. Authorities immediately raised the incident to Level 5, Hong Kong's highest fire emergency classification, reserved only for the most uncontrollable disasters. Within minutes, more than 100 fire engines, ladder trucks, and ambulances flooded the streets of Tai Po. But the rescue operation was a nightmare. Intense heat blasted outward, forcing firefighters back again and again. Ladder platforms struggled to reach upper floors as burning bamboo poles broke apart and rained onto the streets like storms of flaming debris. Fire crews called the scene a battlefield of falling fire. Traffic collapsed into gridlock. Major roads were sealed off. Pedestrian bridges filled with crowds watching the inferno tear through the tower. Every passing minute meant more people trapped inside. Firefighters in full gear crawled through darkness, smashing doors and pulling residents from smoke-filled hallways. One firefighter lost his life trying to reach a group trapped on a higher floor. The rescue pushed every unit to the limit, an all-out war against a fire that refused to slow. By early evening, the true scale of the tragedy was undeniable. At least 13 people were confirmed dead, including the firefighter who lost his life attempting to reach trapped residents. Dozens more suffered severe burns, smoke inhalation, and impact injuries while fleeing collapsing scaffolding and blazing corridors. Nearly 700 residents were forced to evacuate with nothing but what they could carry, small bags, blankets, or nothing at all. Families were separated. Children arrived at emergency shelters not knowing if their parents had survived. Others stood outside the burning towers staring at windows where their loved ones lived, praying to see movement through the smoke. One image stunned the district. A 71-year-old man trembling in the street insisting his wife was still inside. His cries echoed through the crowd as firefighters pushed deeper into the building. Entire hallways were destroyed, apartments reduced to bare concrete. Pets, keepsakes, photographs, everything gone within minutes. This was no longer just a fire. It was a human catastrophe that tore through families, homes, and an entire community. As the flames died down, another fire ignited across Hong Kong, a fire of questions, blame, and outrage. Investigators quickly focused on the massive bamboo scaffolding wrapped around the high-rise. Dry, exposed, and highly flammable, it may have acted like a giant fuse that propelled flames upward at lightning speed. Experts called it a vertical fuel tank strapped to the building. But the scaffolding wasn't the only concern. Residents reported that fire alarms failed to activate on time, raising immediate suspicion about the building's safety systems. How could a complex housing nearly 2,000 people have such a critical failure? Were inspections skipped? Was maintenance ignored? Or did the renovation process compromise fire safety? Government officials promised a full investigation, but public frustration erupted. Social media filled with videos of collapsing bamboo, delayed alarms, and terrified residents fleeing through smoke-choked corridors. Calls for accountability echoed across the city. Why was bamboo scaffolding used on a high-rise this size? Were fire exits maintained? Were renovation crews following safety codes? And most crucially, could this disaster have been prevented? For Hong Kong, this was more than a tragedy. It was a wake-up call, challenging trust in the city's building standards and emergency readiness. Okay, when the smoke finally settled over Tai Po, the devastation became painfully clear. Entire hallways were reduced to charred concrete. Whole sections of the high-rise were declared uninhabitable. Families who had lived there for decades suddenly had no home, no belongings, and no clear future. Community shelters overflowed with residents clutching paperwork, medication, and whatever few items they managed to save. But the emotional wounds ran even deeper. Survivors spoke of running through blacked-out corridors, of hearing neighbors scream behind locked doors, of watching flames race past their windows faster than anyone could react. For many,
The sound of collapsing scaffolding will haunt them for years. As Hong Kong begins its long road to recovery, one truth stands out. A modern city cannot function with outdated safety systems. This tragedy exposed gaps, structural, procedural, and human, that must be fixed before another disaster strikes. And it raises a final question for cities across the world. If a fire can overwhelm a high-rise this quickly, how prepared are we, truly, for the next one? If you want to stay updated on breaking disasters worldwide, storms, fires, quakes, and extreme events, make sure to subscribe, turn on notifications, and join us as we bring you the stories shaping our changing planet.